with Embiid. Let's try to squeeze out something of the end of this contract with some health. And you do that by getting surgery now and sending him home and call it a wrap on the season because they really haven't had a season.
Stephen A.
I think Daryl Morey's going to end up losing his job in Philadelphia. I'm not advocating for it, but I think it's important to mention. Because at some point in time, if you're the billionaire owner for the Philadelphia 76ers, you're going to ask Daryl Morey, why did we give Joel Embiid this extension? Look at his health. Look at how debilitated he is. And if indeed it's a health concern, which obviously it is, why did you let him play in the Olympics? Why couldn't we compel him for that not to be an issue? Those kind of questions are going to come up. I didn't even bring up the 4th year you gave Paul George, okay? Because the Clippers, if I'm Paul George, I'm going to tell you what I think is the issue with Paul George right now, Shannon and Tim. Paul George never wanted to be in Philadelphia. He went there for the money. And I think it's something that we all have to look at. Obviously, with the job that he did in L.A., what they had the potential to be, he clearly felt that he was worth it. And you can make a legitimate argument that he was. With the year that he had last year, he was balling. But let's understand, there's something to be said about not being able to put a price on happiness. We all want to get paid. None of us are going to apologize for that. He took that extra 4th year. I think that sometimes you got to ask yourself, extra year of dollars, which will be coming down the road, was worth sacrificing the level of happiness you had in L.A. compared to the misery you are now experiencing on the East Coast in Philadelphia, in a place that you never really, really wanted to be, in my humble opinion. That's what I think is primarily the issue with Paul George. A new system, being in a place that he doesn't want to be in, he just went there for the money. Okay, that's what I believe. With Embiid, I think that he looks... You got to get him. So I don't give a damn. You got to find out what Kobe did when, God rest his soul, when he used to go over there to Germany. And stuff. Do something, because Embiid looks like he can barely move. His health is awful.
He can't barely move.
And I'm just saying, he's on the verge where if you almost get to a point, Shannon, and I'll hand it to you with this. You almost gotten to a point where if you Embiid, you're kind of wondering, should you consider retiring and taking the insurance money? Should you consider doing something like that? Because that's how debilitated he looks. The Sixers are going nowhere. They clearly need to sit him and Paul George for the rest of the season and try to get whatever you can get out of them over the final 3 years of their deal, and just do it that way. Because you're going nowhere this year. All you're doing is adding and stockpiling physical abuse on their bodies. There's no reason for them to be playing anymore.
Stephen A., to your point about Paul George, there's no crying on a yacht. You asked for this. You wanted that 4th year. You wanted it from the Clippers. They wouldn't give it to you. The one team that would was the Philadelphia 76ers. So you got that 4th year. It's going to be $50+ million. No crying on the yacht. In Joel Embiid's case, everything you guys said are correct. Joel Embiid limped into the playoffs. He limped out of the playoffs. Instead of sitting his butt down, getting that knee healthy, I understand what America has done for him and his family, and him wanting to play in the Olympics. But if I'm Josh Harris, there's no way in hell Joel Embiid, now unless the U.S. men's Olympic team gonna give him 3 years at $193 million, have at it, take off. But other than that, if I gotta pay that salary, Joel Embiid's not playing. Joel Embiid is going to be healthy because your number one obligation is to the Philadelphia 76ers. They pay the contract. They is what's giving you generational wealth for generations and generations to come. Joel Embiid hasn't. When has Joel Embiid been healthy except the 1 year he won the MVP? That's the only time he's been healthy, guys. He's had back, he's had stomach, he's had this issue. And it's just like a car. Stephen A., guys, you know this. If you have a flat tire, you can continue to drive on it, but guess what? It's just not going to mess up that side. And the rotors on the tire that's flat, your rear end alignment, everything is going to go bad. And that's what Joel Embiid is doing. Because he's out of line, he's going to hurt other things. You watch. If you don't sit it down, he's going to start having back issues again. The other side is going to have to compensate, and he's going to hurt that. That is a large man. And the one thing I know about health, people don't normally get healthy as they age, especially people that size. If I'm the Sixers, I'm setting Joel Embiid down. Say, big fella, get healthy. You got March, April, May, June, July, August, September They start in October. Get healthy. He's doing them no service. And as a matter of fact, Legs, you're absolutely right. He's hurting himself. We always thought he's going to have a short career. He limped into the NBA. He's going to limp out of it.
Well, the only last part that I mentioned is that there's a reason I brought up Daryl Morey. The reason I brought up Daryl Morey is not just because Elton Brand was doing a good job before he arrived and they just repositioned Elton Brand to be under him. But the other thing is that most of Daryl Morey, you know this, Tim, most of Daryl Morey's decisions are based primarily on analytics. That's why you signed the contracts that you signed. So guess what? There's consequences for that. Now, again, I'm not advocating for the man to be dismissed. I'm simply saying if I'm the owner, Josh Harris, who owns the Washington Commanders, by the way, whose team was just in the NFC Championship game, who has the Rookie of the Year on his squad and in the number one sport in America, if I'm him and I got to get to the basketball season and I'm looking at the atrocity that the Philadelphia 76ers has become, heads must roll because decisions that have been made have not been impressive. I'm sorry. You got to do something about it.
This is heavy because you can make a case this is the worst it's been for Embiid. Since he dealt with this stuff early in his career that Shannon was alluding to, since that, typically what happens is he'll get hurt, but he has stretches even in those seasons where he is arguably the most dominant offensive player in the league. This year, you haven't seen it at all.
At all.
He's tried to manage this, and he keeps talking about it himself and how he feels. And in some ways,
he's alluded to days off.
Going out there on one leg and acting like he's trying to fight his way through this. I guess for the city of Philadelphia, whatever it may be. No, man, this is as bad as it's gotten for him because at no point has he had a healthy stretch this entire season, and we're 60 games in.
Yeah.
It's time. You just say, you know what, it's not happening this year. Our best bet to get something out of this contract going forward is to deal with this now, to give him more time to be healthy and at his best when the season starts. So I think based on where they're at, make that decision now.
Shannon?
Legs, having been an ex-professional athlete myself, tell me the time the doctor have told you had an injury. He said, but Legs, by playing on it, you'll get healthy. What do they tell you to do, Legs, if you have an injury?
Right.
Sit your butt down.
That's right.
Rest, ice, compression, elevation. That's what Joel Embiid needs. He's not going to get healthier. I love when doctors say, well, you can't make it worse. Can I make it better? You telling me I can't make it worse by playing on it? Can I get it better by playing on it? Because if I can't get it better by playing on it, there is no in between. It's either going to get worse or it's going to get better. And if you're telling me I can't get it better, I'm going to make it worse. Joel, sit down, bro. Get this knee healthy so you can have, and you're right, Stephen A., about Murray, because he let James Harden go. He gave Paul George that contract, and he gave Joel Embiid an extension when he didn't have to. He gave the man an extension knowing his injury history and knowing he was hurt when he gave it to him.
Yeah. Because Daryl Morey's Achilles heel